Welcome to the second stage workshop. We're working on the drift van today. Project's coming along nicely today. We're going to look at getting this diff completely sorted and then also fixing the panard mount that I got wrong in the last episode. Hope you enjoy. Also yesterday, one of the lads made me these plates. So we've done a cardboard cutout. So this is for the mounts on the diff here. So this goes there like that for that top mount. Now the reason I hadn't done this one yet was those chassis rails were in the way last time the diff was in the car. So we did the chassis notch. Now that that's out the way, I was able to tack that other part in, and now it's a matter of getting it done. So the bottom ones are all tacked and in the place, they just need to be fully welded. So we're getting that done. Just got to put that slot in there. But no, he did a good job. Marked out these two holes and drilled them on the drill press over there using the hole saw, all by himself. What a mad lad. Good work, buddy. So yeah, get them cut, get them on the diff, get this thing welded. I'm sick of tripping over it in my workshop. And I'm going to put it back in the car once it's done. So let's get it welded up and finished, because it has been a while. Right, let's get onto it. So as you can see here, while I'm trying to get everything into place, I'm actually using the rose joint that's going to be in this bracket as my spacer to make sure that everything's in exactly the right spot. Also just checking clearances that S13 rear coil over there can actually be bolted into place if I put that piece of metal there, which was no worries. And just making sure everything's all tacked up nicely, so it's not going to move as I weld it. I'll take out all the rose joints as I'm about to do a fair bit of heat. Here you can just see I just did a quick trace run to make sure that with the positioning that I currently had, that I was able to do a full weld in one pass, which I did. So it's always just nice to do that quick little practice run to begin with without actually welding, just to make sure you're comfortable the whole way around. And I've got the diff here on the bench on a couple of axle stands, which allows me to move it around. And a big part of a good weld is just being comfortable while you're welding. So if I'm getting to a good comfortable position, do my trace run, make sure that I'm not going to be uncomfortable in a weird spot. So yeah, able to do that on the axle stands and move the diff around. So there we go, all welded up, which is lovely. Obviously a coat of paint to stop those welds from going rusty, and it looks like our brackets are done on the diff. So that's the mounts all done and finished. So it's a nice feeling to have all them done. I've been tripping over this thing for far too long, kicking around on the floor of the workshop. So it's a nice feeling to have it finished and completed. Sling it into the car now, because I need to get that panard mount sorted. So we'll chuck it in the car and have a look at where this panard mount. Have a look where the panard mount needs to end up. So I got the diff back in the car. Now I need to get a panard rod to stop it from moving side to side. Now I originally got this in the wrong position, so I have some mounts that I've already made up. Now a little bit of work went into that, and I actually quite like the shape and the look that we ended up with. And I reckon I can probably reuse this, because this dimension here is all already done. I actually already machined down the spaces that go in the rose joint to be that dimension. So I'm going to try and reuse this. I reckon a simple cut here and here, and it will end up being welded on the chassis like that. And then it's a matter of making a mount off the diff. So I'll spend the next little bit of time under the car, and we'll try and get all that sorted. And then if I can get that tied together, then the rear end's finished. So get on with that, eh? So just made a pretty simple cut in that bracket that I already made. Give it a quick test fit, and it looks pretty good where I want to go. Back to the chassis rail. That's going to notch onto the chassis. This is all just tacked up, so it's just a matter of I have to pull these side plates off, weld everything up, weld these side plates on. I'm pretty happy with it. So although I had the thing in the wrong spot, I can still reuse a lot of the work that I've done. So it's not all a lost cause. So let's pull this apart, weld it all completely up, and then tack it onto the car, and then we can look at doing the diff mount. cold drawn seamless steel that you use to make roll cages is just really nice to work with. It's a really high quality steel, so it's actually quite easy to get some nice results out the welder. So pretty happy with that. You're never going to see it again. Let's get the plate on. So I messed around a bit with the panard mount and trimmed it up and tacked it onto the chassis rail. And I got the panard rod in place where it needs to be, so you guys can have a look. So we just got this tacked up here for now. I want to make sure I'm completely happy with everything before I start committing to fully welding. And then obviously got it set, beep beep beep, make the noise. And my height is exactly where I want it to be. So in a perfect world, I'd probably have this a little bit lower again, but the fact that I wanted to reuse that mount and weld it not to that nice strong piece of chassis rail that we reinforced, I think that's going to be quite a nice spot to have that. So got that set up there. Now I need to make a mount back to the diff. So I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to do that. So the best thing to do when you're not sure is get out the arts and crafts, get out the piece of paper, make a template. And so we're going to end up with something like that, which I think will do the trick. So I'm going to try and copy what OEM does in this situation and make a mount similar to them. And every diff I've ever seen from original equipment manufacturing, always really heavy. So we're going to make these out of some 5mm. So that's a lot of steel. It's pretty heavy, but I'm 85mm away from the diff, so I want this to be pretty sturdy, laying some pretty big welds on it, and nice and strong using the steel. So I cut two, top and a bottom one. I'm going to cut them out of a piece of scrap steel that I had lying around, which is 5mm, which would be lovely. So we'll get that made, get that tacked on. If we're happy, we'll finish the job. So here's my idea. As you can see, the plate is fairly thick. It's a good 5mm. But like I was saying, OEM, those brackets have always been massive every time I've seen them. So we'll try and copy that a bit to give this a quick test fit. If I'm happy with it, then we'll keep on going. Yeah, I think that'll do the trick. That looks quite nice, actually. I'll go over here, obviously level. The way it sits on the diff there. Sweet. Alright, let's keep on going. So this little idea that I had seems to be working fairly well. So bent up this with a hole in it. The idea is going to be the bolt will go in there, like that. Then we'll sit it on top, like that. And then weld as much as possible to those two plates. Get some healthy amount of weld in there, and then we'll cap the bottom off with that one like that. And that will make our little diff mount. I think that looks alright. So I've got a reasonable amount of weld around there, and then a pretty healthy weld there to this thicker plate. But once this goes on top, I can never get back in there, and this is going to be fully welded to the diff. So I'm not overly confident on relying completely on that when we're applying forces this way. I just want it bulletproof. I don't ever want to be thinking about it. I just want to go out the track, you know, fast entries, drift hard, have a good day, and I don't want to be worried about little things like this failing. So I'm going to cut another piece of steel that sits in here so that I can get another really big weld across the end of the bolt there and support it back to these two faces. And I think that's the most that I can do to try and make it unbreakable. Got a another quite healthy weld onto the end of the bolt there. So I'm hoping that that's going to be enough to withstand the side loads that we're going to be putting this panard mount through. Put the cap on, weld it up, and we'll tack it onto the diff. There's been a slight change of plans. Sent a few pickies through to the gentleman who's far more intelligent than myself. He said, Tommy Dunkhouse, still not low enough, go lower. And it's just like, oh, to go lower was extra amount of work, but he made the good point. He's like, you've come this far, you may as well get it right. So that just meant coming down another 70mm. So that little bracket that I made, had to modify a little bit to get around the sway bar mount. So let's have a look. We've come down even lower now. So before we were sort of up here somewhere, and we've come down. It's about 70mm. So as you can see here, I've had to notch around the OEM sway bar mount, and the sway bar actually bolts on, no dramas, and just sits a bit lower down here. So bit of modifying and cutting and messing about, but I was still able, I didn't have to remake that, which was nice because I put a bit of time and effort into that. So pretty happy there. And then over here, that means we're going to be a considerable amount lower. A bit of 75mm RHS. We'll fix that issue now. I've just finished welding this up, so she's pretty toasty. But that's going to sit on the bottom of the chassis rail there. And that gets us that 75mm lower. So that's a bit warm. Once it finishes being warm, we'll get it on the car and weld it up, and that's our panard mount. So a little bit of extra work, but I think taking the time now and just getting it right, putting it where it was, is going to be worth the effort. Now, there was discussion that, hey, you've come this far, why not make it completely adjustable? Yes, that would be nice, but I've just got so much to do on this car. This rear end project sort of nearing an end. If I spend, another week or whatever making adjustable panard and redesigning and remaking stuff, I just think it's a bit too much time and effort in the wrong places. So where I am, I'm pretty happy with that setup. The car should roll around that roll center quite nicely, and we can just fine tune that a little bit with some sway bars. So right, let that cool down, get it on the car, and move on. So all of that was a whole stack of extra work. I think putting in the time and effort now to get it right is what needs to happen. But it's all finished now. I welded it all up. Let's have a quick look at the finished brackets. There we go, there's a bracket on the diff, all welded up. And the bracket on the body there, all done. So in hindsight, I would have actually liked that bottom bracket. If I knew I was going that low with it, I probably would have incorporated how I plated the rest of the chassis notch into that mount as well. But the saving grace was, because I made that so heavy, welding straight to it was pretty straightforward, because I actually had a fair bit of material there. So a little bit of a win having gone so heavy on that join. But that's just welded to the bottom, so I am going to start putting some bracing in next. So I might even incorporate a bit of triangulation back to other bracing. But for now, let's get the panard rod on. We'll go up and down a few times on the diff, make sure we're 100% happy. Well, we have to be, it's welded now. And there you go, 5th link done. So that's basically it. 4 link rear ends all done. So it feels pretty good to have that all sorted. It's been a fairly long project and had to work out a few things along the way, but it's nice to have it all completely finished. So there is a few mounts left that need to be done for the sway bar, but it's a project for another time. So yeah, feels good to have that all sorted. Now we're going to move on to getting the rest of this cage finished so that all this weight of the diff's no longer hanging on that little bar that I tacked up the top. So that's kind of the next goal, move on to the cage. So the goal that I got for this car at the moment is to get it rolling on all 4 of its wheels. So, but part of that, I want the cage done and a heap of sheet steel done on the wheel wells too. So we'll move on to sheet steel and cages. Woohoo! All right, thanks for watching the video, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you so much for clicking on these videos and watching the build. I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you want to keep up to speed with what's happening at the Second Stage workshop, we have Instagram. So check out Second Stage 86 on Instagram, also on Facebook under Second Stage Fabrication. Also like to see what you guys are building. If you've got a car that you really love or a build you're halfway through, send it to me on Second Stage 86 on Snapchat. Because yeah, super keen to see what you guys are building. I've also got some sticker packs if you want to jump over to the Big Cartel site. I've got a link down in the description. You can get yourself some pretty rad Second Stage stickers. Thanks again. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Have a good one.